So it's Sunday, 12:20 Las Vegas time, and what is this? This is a national park.
We're in Wasatch National Park here. Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah. We were talking about anger and its uses, and for me, its use last night was to say, hey, playing games in a car is not funny to me, and to communicate how important that is to me. So anger has its uses, and you had some thoughts on anger, Mark?
Well, I mean, just one thought on anger is I was actually thinking about when Luke had, for about 5 years, all sorts of unchecked, wrong material up to me on the web. I was actually going to put him on a couple of skis here and send him down the mountain. Hey, Luke, where'd you go? Whoops. So anger's a very beautiful thing, and it's got two sides to it. One side of anger, which you have to be really, really careful before we use it, because it's usually not pure, but one side of anger is holy anger, right? The Talmud in Ta'anit on page 4a calls it Retiche D'Oraita, holy anger. So it's the anger that fuels the social change movement, right? So what anger is, it's a rejection of the status quo, saying it shouldn't be the way it is. So that's a holy anger that we all need to access, in a good way, because it's the fuel for change. The second kind of anger, which is the one about which the Talmud says anyone who becomes angry is an idolater, right? That's the anger in which you're saying, oh my God, right? The world's not feeding my ego enough. And oh my God, right? The world's not supporting my ego enough. Someone's offending me in my egoic self. And so I get angry. That's the second kind of anger. But the third kind of anger, which is really I want to talk about for a second, which is the core, is that underneath, the mad, there's sad, right? So I'm getting angry. Why am I angry? Well, I'm angry because I actually believe unconsciously that you're angry at me. Because I believe you're angry at me, and that makes me really sad, but I can't actually own that you might be angry at me, that the world might be angry at me. I get angry at you. So it's many of the people who walk around angry actually in some deep way have a deep brokenness, and somehow they feel the world hasn't embraced them. They don't have a place in the world, they don't have a home in the world, and that's so painful, so it's so repressed, it's so displaced, that it comes out as anger at the world. And do I have permission to talk about a personal thing you talked about this morning with Kristen?
Sure.
You sure?
Yeah.
So Luke talked about this morning in a very honest conversation with a very close friend of mine who now a new friend of Luke's. He talked about kind of how he emerged and how he evolved, which we all need to do. We all need to look. We all have our personal stories. And one of the things Luke said, which I thought was really perceptive, was that in the years in which he needed to be held by the world in that kind of mother love place, the world didn't hold him. Right? And that creates, and now I'm going to kind of go the next step, that creates an enormous sense of internal, huge pain. And then that pain is displaced because it's too painful to live with every day, right? And so that sad then expresses itself, the world's mad at me, the world's not holding me, it expresses itself in mad. So then the job becomes, and this becomes the job of a person who's really a discerning, deep person, let me now distinguish between the part of my mad that's holy, that's really about changing the world. So, for example, a beautiful thing that you did is you actually exposed, a potential AIDS plague in the pornography industry that may have saved many lives. That was holy mad, right? Then you got to look at other things. Well, maybe that's not holy mad. Maybe that's something else playing here, and what's driving me. And to distinguish between the two is what Luria calls beor, clarification. The ability to actually get clear about that is what creates a person of integrity. And that's just a beautiful thing about these types of anger, being able to distinguish between them. And maybe the last sentence is, the Talmud says in Tractate Brachot that the deepest wisdom is Havdalah. Havdalah is the art of making distinctions, right, against a leveled flatland world in which everything is the same, right? And that's why we make Havdalah, right, this separation between Sabbath and not Sabbath, and the blessing of wisdom. So giving a blessing to Luke, to myself, to everyone, that we really should be able to discern, to make distinctions, and not get so lost in our own need and emptiness that we can't distinguish between sacred anger and anger that's actually, for all of us, just covering over our emptiness.